Information Station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. One thing that is strikingly obvious, if you look at an old photograph, like a group shot of like a family gathering or something like that, from let's say the 40s, and a group shot of a family gathering today, you will really notice that people were really not as heavy back then as they are now. I don't know that I know the answer to why that is, but I think our next guest might have an answer to that. James B. LaValle is on the phone. He's a clinical pharmacist. He's a board-certified clinical nutritionist, naturopathic doctor, and a whole bunch of other credentials. He wants to talk to us about some research that suggests that sugar and carbohydrates are actually behind the obesity surge that we are seeing, and a good example is to look at those group shots. That's where I noticed it. He says it's not physical inactivity. So I would have thought it would have been, because again, comparing the two time spans, I mean, back then people walked probably a lot more. They actually worked probably more physical jobs than we do today. But he says it's actually more about what we eat than how active we are. Jim LaValle. Good morning, Jim. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing really well. Thank you.
And where are you right now?
I am in Mission Viejo, California.
All right. Well, thank you for getting up early to be with us. Yeah, I was looking at the old photos that my mom passed away a few years ago, so I've been going through her stuff. There's so many photographs that I wanted to make sure I gave to anybody who wanted them. And when you look at a group shot, you say, oh my gosh, look how thin everybody was back then. And they, by today's standards, you would say they were skinny.
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly right. I mean, all you got to do is look at the average, gene size from 1900 to now, right? I mean, first of all, people are getting bigger, so there's no doubt about that in terms of height, average height, those kind of things. But, the reality is, I mean, the Journal of Sports Medicine just came out with a big study. I know you alluded to it in the, at the beginning of the show, is that people gain weight not due to the lack of physical activity, but due to the fact that they're consuming way too many carbohydrates and sugars. Now, it's easy to say, don't drink a big gulp drink, don't eat that donut, don't eat that cupcake.
Right.
But I got to tell you, watch TV, get on the Food Channel, and all you see is Cupcake Wars. And what does Cupcake Wars lead to? I've got to go and get a cupcake.
Right, absolutely.
I don't see Broccoli Wars. I don't see celery wars.
That's interesting.
So the issue becomes, I think we're less active. I've always been very physically active. I think that there's some wisdom in the fact that you do need to move more. It's just healthy for you to move more than move less. I think somebody's coined the term that that inactivity is the new smoking. Sitting is the new smoking. So
yeah, right.
Because which makes sense. But the reality is that for a lot of different reasons, people are eating more carbohydrates and sugars, and one of those reasons is they just don't understand serving size. It's amazing to me, and I didn't used to teach serving size. I've been in clinical practice 30 years. I literally have put weight loss programs together that have affected hundreds of thousands of people. So I worked with major fitness chains to put those kind of programs together. And the one thing I never used to be big on was teaching people how to count their carbs and sugar. Now I think it's the single most important thing that I can do for them, because what I realized is most people, they get in the moment of eating and they just don't realize how much they're taking in. Part of that's due to stress, lack of sleep. When you stress out, you want comfort food, right? I want the chocolate covered bacon and the potato chips that are dipped in chocolate. Oh yeah, that's big now. I mean, that's really big.
Oh my goodness.
And why would they eat it? Because they get fat, salty, and sweet and savory all at one time. So it's literally, it's almost like you're taking a drug for your brain to help you to calm down.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you about that because, let me explain. I quit cigars, and some years ago. It's been 7 or 8 years now. But I remember when I first quit quit it. It's like I craved it for a long time.
Yeah.
And so if
Exactly.
and similarly, like within the last 8 months or so, I stopped in the middle of the day. We used to have here all the time. In fact, we still have them here, donuts and all kinds of stuff here at the station. And I decided, okay, I'm just going to skip that. And for a while there, it was a real struggle to walk past it. Now I'm pretty good. I can walk past it. But you can literally, you feel it inside of yourself. You feel your stomach like actually moving or something.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it. There's two things. You know, your belly's your second brain. And when your brain needs a reward or it needs to feel calm, it wants a carbohydrate or a fatty food, something that's, called a comfort food, right? And the other side to that is that if you're really craving, it's kind of like one cookie doesn't do it. You eat the one cookie and the one cookie leads to two, and the third cookie you're almost rubbing on your head. It's not even that you want to eat it; you just want to get it rubbing it on your head. Right. And it's the person you're watching eat a bag of potato chips, and they almost turn the bag inside out and lick the salt off the bag. Right? I mean, it's that deal.
Yeah.
And so one of the big strategies for me that I do is, by teaching, counting carbs. Like, for example, if you eat Chinese food and you think, hey, this is great, I'm ordering Chinese, lots of vegetables, wow, this is way healthier than going and getting chicken fried steak or whatever. But when you eat the bucket of rice that they give, because they do give you a bucket of rice.
Right.
That is enough rice for a family of 4 in terms of servings.
Oh, wow. That little white box is enough for 4 people?
It's enough for 4 people. When you look at serving size, it's enough for 4 people. And when I would show people what a serving of rice is, 15 grams of carbohydrate serving, they would go, I eat about 10 of those when I eat. Well, wow. There you go.
So that brings up another question. You say rice. Rice seems like a healthy food. So if I was going to compare rice as far as carbohydrates to like donut, like donuts is a no-brainer. Okay, that's good for you. But rice seems like it should be good for you. But
it is. It's quantity. It's that same old thing of it's eating too much starch still ends up causing you to raise your blood sugar, which is the number one reason you plaque your arteries. And so we have to have strategies because people aren't going to stop eating starch. I can tell you right now.
So is that true for spaghetti and and mac and cheese and all that other stuff?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, spaghetti, mac and cheese, quinoa, you name it. You eat too many grains and too many refined sugars, and you are going to gain weight. That's the big research of the last few years. I've been teaching the last 25 years and have been published on it. So, I mean, I've been big on it because I've seen people eat a lot of carbs. They get fat. It's like you said, you look at the pictures of the 1940s, and you look at the pictures now, there's a big difference. Now, part of the 40s was you were right. They moved around a lot more. I think the food was, they didn't eat as many boxed food, as much preserved food, as many chemicals in their food. And so I think that has a difference. But one of the strategies for me is I use an enzyme called phase 2. It's a white kidney bean extract that actually blocks the absorption of about half of the carbs when you eat them, but it doesn't block the absorption of nutrients, and it lowers what's called your glycemic index. And I use this for weight loss on people, and I use it for people for maintenance to not gain weight, because people are still going to go around and they're going to have a sandwich at lunch. They're going to stop and have rice. Who goes and eats Chinese and doesn't have the rice? And probably eats a little too much.
So do they sell white beans at the Chinese restaurant?
They don't sell white beans, but you can get the pill. I mean, you take a couple pills before you eat, right? And I do it. I mean, and because I've got a family history of diabetes, and I'm very sensitive to eating too many carbs. And it's not any one brand. I mean, there's several companies that utilize this raw material. So I'm not promoting any one company stuff. But it's interesting because when they did a study, they showed that they put people on it for 12 weeks. They lost more weight than placebo, but when they took them off it, they continued to moderate their appetite, and they also continued to maintain their weight loss,
That makes
which
sense.
is really kind of novel.
Yeah,
it's kind of neat.
Let me take a little break, and we'll be right back with more. Jim LaValle is our guest. We're learning about how carbs and sugar are what's making us fat, and our cravings for them kind of makes it an endless cycle. We'll take a little break and learn more when we come back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. It'll be mostly sunny today. There can be a thunderstorm around during the afternoon and evening hours. The high 92 to 96, then turning out to mainly clear overnight, low 73 to 77. Tomorrow, partly sunny and hot. There can be a thunderstorm in one or two spots in the afternoon, the high 91 to 95. And for Wednesday, partly sunny, the high again 91 to 95. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Ooh, a xylophone. Sounds dreamy.
Yeah, they don't make them like this anymore, Robin. I'm shipping it to the Musical Historical Society.
And you're packing it like that?
What, this won't work?
Why don't you take it to the Personal Service Center at the corner of Northeast 25th Avenue and 24th Street in Ocala? Just look for the yellow signs.
Great idea. That'll save me a lot of time.
The passing of time.
Personal Service Center makes sending packages easy.
And quick, call 789-6683.
For the Personal Service Center.
Hi, I'm Seth with AA Lock, Dock, and Security. Have you ever thought about the locks or security on your house or business? Have you ever wondered why the keys to your new car cost so much? Well, at AA Lock, Dock, and Security, we can help with securing your valuables. We can even replace those expensive transponder keys. We can give you the knowledge that no one else will. Call AA Lock, Dock, and Security at 867-1965. That's 867-1965.
Are you tired of not using your home's outdoor space for entertaining or relaxation because of all the bugs and leaves? Consider adding a beautiful screen room or glass enclosure. We are Superior Aluminum and Design, a family-owned and operated business with 20 years experience in the aluminum industry, and we are accredited by the Better Business Bureau. If you appreciate superior workmanship, call Superior Aluminum and Design at 817-8058 or visit us on the web at superiораluminumdesign.com.
If you're anything like I was, the thought of getting older was the last thing on your mind. But here we are. For me, it started slowly. The lack of energy, never being in the mood. And when I was, I could never perform at my best. I tried the pills and other treatments with minimal results, and all but given up on my sex life. Then I found the doctors at New Male Medical Center. Wow, they made a new male out of me. Feel like I'm 25 again. I have renewed vigor, so much more energy, and no longer worry about my performance. New Male treated me like my situation was one of a kind, with a custom treatment plan that really works. I feel great. They can create one for you too. It does not matter if you suffer from low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, or just want to last longer. New Male will help you.
Call New Male Medical Center today at 352-404-4779. 352-404-4779. That's 352-404-4779. It will change your life. 352-404-4779.
All right, 18 minutes after 11 o'clock, Jim LaValle is on the phone. He's a clinical pharmacist. He's talking about research findings that say, from the Journal of Sports Medicine, that say that sugar and carbohydrates are behind the obesity surge, not physical inactivity, although he does say that, you need to be physically active. Jim, I want to tell you a little bit about the typical day for Robin and I, because we do a morning show. Okay, so 3 o'clock in the morning is not unusual time to get up. So first of all, you're up at 3, okay? We don't go on the air till 7, but that's all that prep stuff you got to do, okay? So by the time, let's say 1 o'clock comes around, there is this surge of sleepiness, and I can remember before I was training myself to stay away from everything was carbs out there. If you think about it, we had donuts, we had those square crackers out there.
Yeah.
Everything was a carbohydrate based, right?
Easy to eat.
And it was so, because you feel this sleepy thing coming on, and you say, oh gosh, I need something to wake me up. In the prep material, you have something called ghrelin hormone. What is that?
Well, ghrelin, that is what causes you to become hungry, right? So your body releases ghrelin, and it tells you, I got to eat. And when you're waking up in the middle of the night, or, when your appetite gets inappropriate, you start to release more ghrelin, and it tells your body, hey, time to eat. And then the other thing that happens is that, you may think you're hungry, but you're thirsty, because the same center in your brain reads hunger and hydration. So H&H, right? It's do I need something to drink or do I need something to eat? Most of the time, people will go for eating something like a pack of M&Ms before getting a bottle of water, and that's another factor as well. And what I've taught people for a long time is eat a high protein breakfast, eat a high protein lunch, and then do more. If you're going to eat your starch at dinner, because that will help your mood and your sleep to improve and to reset your leptin and ghrelin. And that's actually been shown in another study that was, 89 obese New York City police officers where they gave them just their starches in the evening. So, but I'm going to tell you the big challenge with that. Everybody knows that lower carb dieting works, right? Whether you talk about the Atkins diet or the South Beach diet or whatever the low carb diet is. I mean, let's just face it. But the problem is, people lose 60 pounds, they jump up and down, they come in, everybody using Oz over how wonderful they are. 8 months later, they got 70 pounds back on them. And the reason is they can't stay away from the starch because of the craving and the reward, and it's plentiful, right? It's easy to pick up, a granola bar, which happens to have 2 or 3 servings of carbohydrates in it. Or I'm going to eat a bowl of oatmeal because I serve that's healthy. But when I look at the serving of oatmeal, it's like a quarter cup, and I'm eating a cup. And so what I try to get people to understand is eat more protein when you have to stay alert. You have a little bit of an issue because of the 3 a.m. wake-up call, right? I mean, you are skewing your natural sleep cycle a little bit. And so that's going to cause a little bit of craving because your brain's going, hey, you're going to make me be awake. I need food because your brain runs on sugar. And it's going to say, give me the immediate fuel. So that donut, that starch, that cracker looks really good.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a candy bar. I mean, when you eat starch, it goes across your intestine because it's so finely milked today. It goes across your intestine and raises your blood sugar. But once again, raise your blood sugar, plaque your arteries.
But at the same time, if you had a bowl full of broccoli sprouts or something, I mean, and you literally say, okay, I'm going to eat that instead of this, would you satisfy the cravings or change them from something bad to something good?
Well, I would suggest I would suggest one, chew slowly, and that helps your brain to release hormones that say you're no longer hungry because you've chewed. The act of chewing does that. And then the other thing is add some protein with the broccoli. So eat some almonds or eat some pistachios. I like pistachios because you got to crack them. Get them when we're in the shell still. Yeah, crack them so you're not just mowing through a handful at a time because that's the other thing people do when they eat nuts. When I say you can eat nuts, they grab a handful of nuts at a time and, eat several handfuls.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Take a small handful. Yeah, right. You and everybody else.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. It's a habit that we've learned because food's become so convenient. But if you think about how you would, eat walnuts, say in the 1930s, remember when I was a kid in 1965, my mom had a walnut cracker. Right? You had a walnut cracker device and you had a little pick that picked the walnuts out. Now,
right.
You buy a bag of finished picked almond or walnuts, right?
Yeah.
You can eat them by the handful. And so you eat a lot more of them because you could get them in fast versus cracking one, eating it, chewing it. And that's a big deal. And so once again, starch is everywhere. It's easy. Like I said, the cupcake wars are everywhere. There's no bakeries shutting down that I see. It's so...
That's interesting. Yeah.
And so it's like, look, when you know you can't do it, use strategies. Other things like magnesium and chromium help your body regulate blood sugar. In fact, magnesium is the #1 nutrient deficiency associated with the development of diabetes. It happens to be a lot in produce, vegetables, fruit, but it's also in grains. It's in things like pumpkin seeds. So getting enough magnesium really is helpful for regulating your blood sugar. And I really want people to think about it because it's very novel data on this phase 2 enzyme because it's a great strategy. Hey, I'm trying to maintain my weight, but, I'm going to be somewhere where I know I'm going to only be able to order a sandwich. Great, take a couple phase 2 tablets. Think and knock down that blood sugar spike that occurs. It's going to cause you to crash, kind of like what you said. You get to about 1, 2 o'clock,
right?
You're tailing. So you reduce that risk because when your blood sugar goes up high, it crashes more. You release more insulin, and so you want to try to level that out. And I really think that that's a good strategy. Drinking water is a good strategy. Shelling your nuts is a good strategy. Eating more protein is a good strategy, and try to get 7 to 9 hours sleep. And if you're a big foodaholic, like, you get the pictures, somebody sending you food pictures all the time. Look what I just ate. Look what I just ate. Remember, those things stimulate appetite. So you may want to moderate the Foodie Network, the Instagram, the Pinterest, all that stuff. If you've got friends that are sending you, look what I just ate all the time. And I have friends like that. They're always taking pictures of their food. I'm like, really? Eat it. Eat the food.
One of the things in the material that was sent to us to prepare for the interview was talking about how certain medications might be triggering like eating binges as well.
Oh, absolutely. In particular, antidepressants have a tendency to do that. And even some of the more powerful agents that traditionally weren't used for sleep, but are, like Seroquel, which is a drug that people just gain weight on it. Even on moderate doses of it, they gain weight. And so if you are on medications that seem to have correlated with your weight gain, talk to your doctor about it. See if they can change your medication and see if it can't make a difference. Because all of a sudden, you can't pass up the cupcake shop or the donut shop or the cookie aisle, right? That's what starts to happen.
Right.
And if it's a strange behavior for you, you want to go, well, gee, am I on a medication? Maybe did I just get put on a med that's making me do this all of a sudden?
So what does the phase 2 enzyme actually do? I mean, does it counter the effects of it, or what does it do?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. What it doesn't affect sugar. So just realize, I think people should really watch their sugar intake regardless. 9 to 11 teaspoons of sugar in every can of soda pop that somebody picks up. I mean,
wow.
That's a lot, right?
That's a lot, yeah.
And the artificial sweeteners don't help you that much either. They show that they also can stimulate appetite. So, I mean, I'm not such a big fan on just drinking that stuff in general. But when you eat starch, you have to break it down to be used as fuel. So you release an enzyme called amylase. And what's the phase 2 does is it blocks that enzyme so you don't break all that starch down. The starch goes undigested into your intestine and into your lower intestine, and that actually is a good thing. Because if you think about it, we used to eat our grains, they weren't as refined, right? So you think of cracked wheat and wheat berries and all those kind of things. We used to eat our stuff unrefined, and so you chew it up, but you wouldn't get to all of the grain to be able to absorb it. Well, resistant starch feeds the beneficial flora in your lower intestine. And we know that the beneficial flora, or the probiotics, or the microbiome, everybody hears a different term about it, those bugs are responsible for telling your intestinal hormones what to do. So if your bugs aren't getting fed what they're supposed to be getting fed, like resistant starch, they're going to send out that ghrelin hormone. And if your bugs are getting enough resistant starch, oh my gosh, you start to release GLP-1, or glucagon-like peptide, which causes you to actually improve satiety signaling and improve your leptin relationship, which tells you that you're not hungry anymore. And they've shown this, right? They've shown that when they give resistant starch to, say, for example, type 2 diabetics,
right,
a lot of their parameters got better. So that's why I think phase 2 is really cool, because it blocks some of the starch, about 60%. The glycemic burden doesn't go up, so you don't start becoming insulin resistant because you're eating starch. And then the third is, in my opinion, clinically, is that I'm creating more resistant starch, which is really good for the maintenance of the beneficial flora, the microbiome of my intestines.
Oh, okay. I want to make sure the listeners can look this up so they can either share it with somebody or get the details. Is there a website you could recommend?
Well, you can get, if you go to JimLaValle.com, I've got how do you count your carbs. And if they download that, how do you count your carbs, it has a little bit of information on phase 2 that they can look up. But it's not, it literally is just use this if you're going to take in these many starches. They can always look up phase2.com, which is fine. I would say for your listeners, get that download, understand your carb counting, and it's my dietitians put it together. So I have 3 dietitians that work for me. They put it together. People really like it.
Plus, you have the book Cracking the Metabolic Code.
That's right.
I believe the last time you were on, we talked about that, and the listeners loved that one. So go to Jim's website, JimLaValle, LaValleInterview.com, and you'll be able to find everything we were just talking about. Thank you for being on the air with us today. Good information. I think I'm going to try this.
All right. Always good to be on. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we will be right back.